Okay, so far what we have covered, we have seen how to develop a project charter which came in the initiating process group, and we came to know how to identify stakeholders which also came in the initiating process group. Then in the planning process group we understood how to create and develop a project management plan. So this project management plan was in the integration management knowledge area. You know the reason, because if I want to create a plan, I have to get various inputs. I have to integrate all those inputs in order to create a project management plan. So in today's session, we are going to understand how to collect the requirements. Section 5.2, collect requirements, and this collect requirements is also a process which comes in the planning process group. Okay, so let's go and understand how to collect the requirements. Now we know the definition of an stakeholder. So who is a stakeholder? Stakeholder or stakeholders? They are the person who can influence the project or who can be influenced by the project. Now generally stakeholders' expectation get mapped to project objectives. See, we have seen the brief objective of a project when we were creating a project charter. We know that project charter is a document which will authorize the project, which will kickstart the project. And there are some business objectives which are actually mentioned in the project charter. And we identified the stakeholders. We took one example of the project and we identified some stakeholders. And you also made one stakeholder register, which you saw in the previous class, where I had the name of the stakeholder, his role, his contact number, and we classified the stakeholder either as a positive stakeholder or a negative stakeholder. And we also saw what is the influence of that particular stakeholder on the project, whether he has a high influence or a low influence or a moderate influence. Then we saw the stakeholder management grid, where we divided the stakeholders into 4 quadrants, where we took high priority in the project and the high influence in the project. How do we manage them? So that means now we have a stakeholder register with us and we have a stakeholder management plan with us. Now once you have the stakeholders with you, the next immediate step is to go and talk to the stakeholders and start collecting the requirements. So once you collect the requirements, that is the starting stage for you to create something called as WBS. WBS stands for work breakdown structure. So work breakdown structure is an process which will take the input as a requirements and it will create the work breakdown structure. So this we will not touch now. In this session we will only understand how to get the requirements from the stakeholders. So this is the actual overview of collect requirements process, and it comes under a knowledge area called project scope management. Now in order to collect the requirements, you should have 2 inputs with you, which you already have now. You have a stakeholder register. So stakeholder register will have all the names of the stakeholders. Okay, and every stakeholder will be numbered. There will be a contact information about the stakeholder, and you also identified the influence of that particular stakeholder and the type of that particular stakeholder, whether he is a positive stakeholder or whether he is a negative stakeholder. Now that stakeholder register itself becomes an input for what? For collecting the requirements. Because now you have identified the stakeholders, you have to go and talk to them and ask them, give me the requirements of your project. And you should also have project charter with you, because project charter is a document which will basically authorize your project. So both these documents you should keep it in hand before you start collecting the requirements. So what are the tools and techniques for actually creating this particular collect requirements process? You have so many tools and techniques, like you have interviews, you have focus group, you have facilitated workshops, you have group creativity techniques, you have group decision making techniques, you have questionnaires and surveys, you have observations, and you have prototypes. So we shall take this one by one and understand what are these tools and techniques. So remember that every process will have input, will have tools and techniques, and will have output. So input to collect requirements is the stakeholder register and the project charter. Now you should have these two inputs ready with you, and you should perform these tools and techniques like interviews, focus group, facilitated workshop. So these tools and techniques you have to employ, and finally you have to come out with an output called requirements collection report. What is the output? We shall see that later. Now first we shall see what is focus groups. The focus groups can be homogeneous or heterogeneous. We will see what is this. Moderator facilitates the discussion. Effectives when subject matter experts and key stakeholders are involved. Okay, now let us say that you are doing a flyover project. If you want to do a flyover project, I will set up a focus group. For example, I will have all the executive committee members in one group. I will have all the board of directors in another group, and I will have all the financiers in the another group. Then what I will do, I will talk to these group members. I will ask the executive directors, and I will ask them what is the requirement of this particular project. So they will give me some requirements. Then board of directors, I will ask them the requirements. So they will give me the requirements of that particular project. Similarly with finance group. So I will ask them the requirements. They will give me the requirements of this particular project. So the moment you say focus group, what is the meaning of focus? You are focusing on one particular set of people. Then after you are done with executive directors, board of directors, and financiers, you come to the next group, which could be functional managers. Probably you can talk to engineers, electrical engineers, you can talk to a group of civil engineers, you can talk to a group of stress engineers, architectural engineers, then ask them the requirement. That is another set of group. So that means you are focusing to collect the requirements from individual set of groups, where they are all subject matter experts. Electrical engineers are subject matter experts in electrical engineering. So if they have to give the requirement for electrical connections in the flyover project, only electrical engineering department will be able to give the requirements, not from the civil engineering department. So like this you can basically set up an focus group, and sometimes focus groups can be homogeneous or heterogeneous. What is the meaning of homogeneous focus group? Homogeneous focus group means you are talking only to a specific group of people. As I told you, you have executive director as one group and board of directors as another group. Sometimes there would be a necessity where you are going to club both the groups together. For example, you may create a focus group which involve people from executive directors also as board of directors. Then it becomes an heterogeneous focus group. So focus group is one of the tools and techniques, in order to collect the requirements from the stakeholders. Next is called as a facilitated workshops. So what is this facilitated workshops? Stakeholders from different departments impacted by the project are brought together. So you are going to bring stakeholders from different departments. Let me tell you one example. See, you want to construct a flyover. In order to construct a flyover, you need to collect the requirements from the stakeholders. So who are all the stakeholders for a flyover project? Government of Karnataka is one of the stakeholders, because they are the people who are influencing the project. Customer is also a stakeholder. Then you have Karnataka Power Transmission Corporation. They are also stakeholders, because they can also influence your project, because they have to move the lines, power transmission lines they have to shift. Similarly, BWSSB, they are also the stakeholders. Then Land Authority of Karnataka, they are also the stakeholders because they should help you in acquiring the land. So now what happens is you are going to pick one representative from each one of these. You are going to pick one representative from KPTCL, or KPTCL will appoint one representative for you, either way around. Then you are going to choose one representative from BWSSB, one representative from Government of Karnataka who is actually influencing this particular project. You want to put all representatives from all the departments or all the stakeholders and conduct one workshop, facilitated workshop, and ask what are their expectations about this particular project. So in this case, what happens is you are going to perform one kind of a brainstorming session with all these representatives, so that there is no conflict. See, for example, KPTCL person may say, see, my line is going from this point to this point. It is little difficult for me to move little away, maybe 2 kilometers away. So BWSSB guy says, no, my drainage pipe actually goes in this area. So like this, there could be some conflicts between the stakeholders regarding this particular project. So those conflicts can be resolved by using facilitated workshops. See, why we are doing this facilitated workshop? Because we are collecting the requirements. So facilitated workshops gives me more clarity. So that is also one of the tools and techniques for actually collecting the requirements. So the first tools and technique is focus group, and the second tool and technique is facilitated workshops. Next, interviews. This is very straightforward. Say, interviews means it is the most straightforward way to collect information from others. See, let us say that you are going to build one e-commerce portal for a shop. So the shop owner is a stakeholder. So you go and talk to the shop owner and interview him. You are going to ask him what are the problems of the current system. How do you want this portal to look like? So all these are some of the questions you actually pose to the shopkeeper, and he will start giving you the answers. Now usually it is one-on-one. For example, let us say that there are 2-3 shopkeepers who are available in the shop. So if there is only one shopkeeper, then you only go and talk to that one shopkeeper and you start getting the requirements. But if there are 2 or 3 shopkeepers, then you can put all of them in a group and you can interview at the same time. And it can be structured or unstructured. This is very important. What is the meaning of structured? Structured means you have some set of questions which you have already noted down in a paper, and you are going to ask those questions to the shopkeeper and he is going to answer those questions. This is called as a structured interview, where everything is planned, like how television interviews are all structured. For example, the person who is interviewing would have made the questions ready, and sometimes he would have even told what questions he is going to ask also. So this type of an interview is called as a structured interview. Unstructured interview means nothing is planned. It goes like a normal conversation, like how I and you are talking. I am giving you some input, you are giving me some feedback. It goes like a normal flow of conversation. This is called as an unstructured interview. So you have to decide with your stakeholder whether you will do a structured interview or an unstructured interview. For some stakeholders, structured interview is the best option because you will have list of questions with you. You are going to ask your doubts, you are going to ask that question, and he is going to give answers to those questions. So this is called as a structured interview. Sometimes you may have to talk to the board of directors or executive directors. There you cannot have a ready-made questionnaire. Sometimes the questionnaire will be asked to them and they will give answers to you, but they may want to give more inputs to you. In that case, if your question is not having to be given them for giving the more inputs, then you may lose that particular information. So it becomes an unstructured interview where it is going to have a free flow conversation. So interviewer should focus on the goals and be knowledgeable about the subject. See, if I am doing an interview for a stakeholder, let us say that I want to build a project for a banking system. So now I want to build a total application for banking system. Everything in the bank has to be automated. Your savings bank account, current account, fixed deposit account, everything should be automated. If I have to ask questions, then I should have knowledge about banking system. If I am not coming from the banking system, if I come from other system like insurance system or medical system, then I will not be able to interview a banker and try to get requirements from a banker. So if I am from the banking domain, then I will be able to collect the requirements properly. Now for collecting the requirements, for talking to the stakeholders, interview is one of the tools and technique. So in that there are two ways. It can be structured or unstructured. Structured means I will have some set of questions to ask. I will ask those questions in the interview. The person who is in front of me will give me the answer. I will take those requirements and come back. That is one way of doing it. Unstructured is I don't plan anything at all. I simply casually talk to him. And the interview happens like a normal flow of conversation. So this type of an interview is called as an unstructured interview. So interviews are one of the tools and techniques for collecting the information from the stakeholders. So far we have seen three tools and techniques. One is the focus group, second one is the facilitated workshops, and the third one is the interviews. The next one is questionnaire. Sometimes, see, there may be so many employees in the organization with the same profile. For example, you are automating a factory. When you are automating a factory, there are so many lines, production lines in the factory, where in each production lines there are machines, and for each machine there will be operators. So your stakeholder is an operator now. See, operator is also a stakeholder. You have identified that stakeholder. Now you will not go and interview every operator, because operator's designation is the same. If there are 100 operators in my organization, all 100 operators will do the same kind of operation on a day-to-day basis. So there is no point in interviewing all the 100 operators, because their requirements would by and large be the same. So instead of doing that, instead of doing interviews, what I can do is, I can create one questionnaire. In that questionnaire, I can make some 10-15 questions, and I can also give them options, multiple choice options, and I can ask those operators to fill up the answers and give it to me back. So this is also one idea of getting the requirement from the stakeholder. And it is also quicker. Why? Because I just have to create one questionnaire. Maybe I am going to create a Google form, and I will send that Google form to all the 100 operators, and I will give them a time frame. All of you should be able to respond to my Google form and send it back to be my so and so date. So they are going to respond to me by adding the details and sending to me back. So I will collect those Google form, and it will help me in gathering and analysis of data. So this is also one of the tools and technique for collecting the requirements from the stakeholder. So you understood questionnaires, you understood interviews, you understood facilitated workshops, and you understood focus groups. So these are all tools and techniques for what? Collecting the requirements. So if you want to collect the requirements, you should have inputs ready with you. One is the project charter, and the second one is the stakeholder register. How did you know that you are going to send the questionnaire to the operator? Because operator was one of your stakeholder which was mentioned in the stakeholder register. So your stakeholder register mentioned that there is a stakeholder called operator. Now you are coming out with an idea that for all the operators I have to use a technique called questionnaires in order to collect the requirements from them, because you found out that there are hundreds of operators who are available in the organization, and there is no point in conducting one-on-one interview for all the hundreds of operators, because their requirements would by and large be the same. Next is observation. This also is one of the main important technique for understanding the requirement. Sometimes it is also called as job shadowing. See, let me give you one very simple example. A online trading company who are into share market, they want you to come out with an software application which helps them in trading. Now what happens, he's making you to understand what is share market, how trading is done, okay, how does the BSE, Sensex, they all vary, everything is teaching you, but somewhere you are still not understanding the terms properly. You interviewed them, okay, you did not understand. Then you gave them questionnaires, still you did not understand properly. Then you conducted facilitated workshops, you conducted focus groups. Somewhere you are missing out some details, still the clarity is not there. So I told you in the beginning, you have to understand the problem before you attempt a solution. Clarity of problem is very important. Clarity of problem here means understanding the requirements. Even if you have slightest confusion in understanding the requirements, project management says that you don't attempt to start arriving at a solution because your requirements are still not having clarity. So I need to have 100% accurate clarity requirements. So what do? So you do something called as job shadowing. Job shadowing means you sit beside the trader only and you see what and all it does from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Sometimes you watch him every minute, how does he trade, how does he analyze the stock market, then you will get the requirements. It is called job shadowing, observing him. One way is asking him what you do. He will explain you in his own sentences, English sentences, like what is he going to do on a day-to-day basis. See, he may not explain what he is doing you properly because he may miss out few points. If he misses out few points, you are losing the requirement. So I told you that requirement should be having 100% clarity. So what do? You do job shadowing. That means you sit beside him. It is also called as observation. You observe what he does on a day-to-day basis and get the requirements. Probably this may take a week or a month or even 2 months. In 1 week, you observed him. Still you are not able to understand what he does on a day-to-day basis. Sit with him for another 1 week. You do this unless and until you have clarity on the requirements. So the same example I have given you here. When you are developing an online trading system, sitting with a trader helps you understand the system's requirement better. You sit with him in order to understand the requirements better rather than giving him questions and asking him to write answers to the questions. Job shadowing will give you more clarity in understanding the requirements. This also is one of the tools and technique to collect requirements from the stakeholder. Then there are some group creativity techniques like brainstorming. Brainstorming means you put all the people in one room and brainstorm. Now tell me what are the requirements. So that is also one kind of gathering the requirements. Or you have nominal group technique. It's a type of brainstorming or a mass interview technique. Put all the participants in one hall and conduct one open house session. Open house means ask random questions and let them give you random answers. That is called as nominal group technique. Then Delphi technique. Delphi technique is also like brainstorming, but the response from the participants is collected anonymously. I am not going to target one individual person. I am going to ask a question and anybody can answer it. And I'll pick that particular answer and I will record it. That is called as a Delphi technique. And there are 2 more techniques which are very important. We call them as affinity diagrams and idea or mind mapping. I will show you what is this affinity diagram, idea or mind mapping. This is very commonly used in project management. What is affinity diagram? Group similar ideas collected by brainstorming. See, when I do brainstorming, I get lot of ideas. I collect them. For example, let us say you are building an hospital management system. What is a hospital management system? You are automating the entire hospital. So I brainstorm. I put nurse, I put warden, I put cardiologist, I put radiologist, I put dentist, I put small term doctors, I put internship doctors, I put senior doctors, experienced doctors, medical practitioners. Everybody I'll put them in a room and I'll brainstorm. So they'll all start giving me requirements. Now when they start giving requirements, you have to categorize them, because each one of the person will give requirements in his own domain. So when you ask a requirement of a lab technician, his requirements would be totally concerned with the lab. So for that, what I have to do, I have to draw one affinity diagram. So what is that affinity diagram? It is a diagram technique that allows large number of ideas classified into groups for review and analysis. So maybe if you look at one example, you will understand. See, this is an example of an affinity diagram. See, what I am trying to do here is I am getting ideas for managing my stocks. Okay, so here there are some requirements given, like unreliable arrival time of stock from bakery, often have to sell day old stock as new stock has not arrived. So now all these requirements are with respect to stocks. So what I will do, I'll put them in one group, and that group I will call it as availability of stock. Similarly, some people will start giving only requirements about products. For example, insufficient variety of products, we do not cater to special diets, unresponsive to customer special needs, limited resources. Limited resources means reduced variety of products. So all these are some of the requirements which are in response to products. So I group them under products. So like this, what I am doing, see, these are called as affinity diagrams. So what is that affinity diagrams? First I will collect requirements. Maybe I get thousands, 10,000s or even 20,000 requirements. Then what is my job is to pick those requirements one by one and start putting in them one group, and I will name that group. So you can see that the first group is named as availability of stock. Second group is named as forecasting and ordering. Third group is named as financial performance. Like this, I group them. So all these groups are now become into a affinity diagram chart. So okay, this is like pile of cards where all the requirements will have pile of cards, and all the pile of cards will have a header card. The header card is nothing but the name of that particular group. So this kind of diagram is called as an affinity diagram. So you can see here group similar ideas collected by brainstorming. Affinity diagram is a technique that allows larger number of ideas classified into groups for review and analysis. So this also is one of the main tools and techniques used for collecting the requirements from your stakeholders. There is something called as mind maps. This is called as a mind map. See, here also you are just getting ideas randomly. See, for example, this is your project. My idea is a project. Now you are getting so many ideas, skilled workers, management, partners. So there is no logical sequence. Anywhere there is no logical sequence. It is totally unstructured. Okay, there is no sequence at all. Customers will give you about demographics, ideal customer, psychographics, unique quality, reliability, excellence. All these are coming as ideas, and you put all these ideas in the form of this tree-like structure. Now this is called as idea mapping. So idea mapping and affinity diagrams are two most important techniques under group creativity techniques. Why it is called group creativity techniques? Because I am taking the requirements in a group, not one-on-one. For affinity diagrams also, you should have group of people giving you the ideas, and I have to group them. And in mind mapping also, I have different people who are going to give you different ideas, and I am going to map all those ideas together. But it is not structured, but in some way it is going to give me some clarity about what kind of requirements could be there in my project. So these two are the most important techniques in group creativity techniques. So one is affinity diagrams and idea mapping. Apart from that, you have brainstorming, nominal group technique, and Delphi technique. Okay. Next, there are certain group decision making techniques, very important. See, you got all the requirements now, you have to take a decision. For example, I will tell you, now I want to construct a flyover. To construct a flyover, KPTCL gave that now my transmission line is going here. Then BWSSB also says that even my sewage line is also going here. So now you have to take an decision whether you have to move the sewage line first or whether you have to move the transmission line first. For that, you don't know what to do first, what to move first, because you are a project manager of the organization. So in that case, you have some methods called as unanimity. Unanimity means full support. Government of Karnataka will come into picture and say they will not ask anybody. You move KPTCL line first, then sewage department will take over the later stage. So unanimity has come from the government of Karnataka itself. You don't have to worry at all. So then you can ask KPTCL to move their lines first, and then you can ask the BWSSB people to move their lines next. Sometimes unanimity may not be there. Then majority comes into picture. Then what you do, you put all the KPTCL stakeholders, all the BWSSB stakeholders, your project director, funder, everybody, and start asking them, see, this is the requirement. If I want to start this flyover, this area has to be neat and clean. So I have to move these lines. What I should do? So some people say move KPTCL first. Some people say move sewage line first. So whom will I consider? So you will put a vote. When you put a vote, you will understand that 50% of the people will support an idea that KPTCL lines has to be moved first. Then you consider that, and you consider that as an unanimous decision, and you ask that KPTCL people to move those lines first. So that will be taken as the requirement of your project. Or sometimes it could be plurality. Largest subgroup within the group gets decision making authority. So in that KPTCL only there will be subgroups like erection engineers. So they will be given authority in order to make the decision, because ultimately at the end of the day they are the people who are going to do the work. So this is called as plurality. Or finally there is a dictatorship. Dictatorship means one person decides on the group's behalf. So there is one person who will dictate everything and say, no, this has to be done like this only, this has to be done like this only. So he is having a dictatorship mechanism in order to take a decision. So all these concepts, whether it is unanimity, majority, plurality or dictatorship, they come into picture only when we have to make a decision. So sometimes after getting the requirements from the stakeholders, we have to prioritize them, what to do first, what to do next. At that time you are getting stuck. So at that point of time we can make use of these decision making techniques in order to prioritize our requirements. What requirement we should do first and what requirement we should do next. To do that we can think of unanimity, majority, plurality and dictatorship. So these are some of the group decision making techniques. So there are two things which you understand: group creativity techniques and group decision making techniques. Group decision making techniques, these methods were used if you have to take a decision, how you are going to take a decision. Here you are using creativity technique to brainstorm and to put down your ideas so that it is easy for you to understand. So creativity and decision making are two different things. Finally, you have something called as a prototype. Now what is a prototype? This is very, very, very important. See, let us say that you are building a house. You have an idea. Okay, you tell your contractor about your idea. He is not able to understand. So what he will do, he will make one small model of that house and give you. Prototyping model. So he will show your house is going to look like that in the front view. Okay, in the left side view it is going to look like this. In the top view it is going to look like this. But it is only a miniature model constructed out of cardboard. So if you see that prototyping model, you will get an idea like how that house is going to look like. Okay, now That itself is not a house. That itself is not a house. Okay, but it is only the model of that particular house. Model of that particular house. So when you are understanding the prototypes, what you have to understand is it is not a actual model. It is only the working model, which is very important. So it is an iterative process. I will just show you one small picture. You will understand. See, first you are listening to a customer. Let's say that your customer wants to, you are a customer, you are telling your contractor that you have to build him a living area. You are explaining him and okay, he is giving you all the details, but you are unable to understand it. So in that context, what you will do, you will make a small miniature prototype and you will show you, this is how my living area is going to look like. Then he will understand and see, okay, I told him like this, he has made a model like this. Then he says, your model is around 65% complete to what I have told, but you have to make some more minor modifications here. So then he will give you those modifications. He will redo that particular model and once again he will give you the one more prototype. Then you will run the prototype once again and show him. Then he says, my prototype is perfect. Then you will approve that particular prototype. This is called as a prototyping model. First you will listen to the customer. You will build one small model. Then the customer will see that model. And the customer will actually see that model, means he will test drive with the model. That means he is going to test that particular model and is going to give you the feedback. So you are going to listen to him once again. So based upon that feedback, what are you going to do? You are going to revise that particular prototype once again. So like this keeps on going. Iterative. What is the meaning of iterative process? It's a circular, it keeps on repeating until that particular prototype becomes an approved prototype. So this kind of methodology is called as prototyping methodology. This also is one of the tools and techniques for your collecting the requirements. So finally, what is the output you are going to get? See, now you did so many things. Okay, what did you do? You took stakeholder register, you took project charter, then you performed all these tools and techniques, and finally you are going to get some outputs. So what are the outputs? You are going to get requirements documentation. That means now you have all the outputs, documentations of stakeholder needs. Then you have requirements management plan, how the requirements will be analyzed and documented, and requirements traceability matrix, very important. Requirement traceability matrix means tracking of requirements throughout the project. Okay, so now we will see an example of what is this requirement traceability matrix. So the requirements documentation, that is the first output, what and all it contains. It contains business need, why are you doing this project? Then objectives, functional, non-functional and quality requirements. All the requirements will be mentioned in the requirements documentation. It will have quality requirements, functional requirements and non-functional requirements. Functional requirements means the functional requirements means the requirement given by the stakeholder. Non-functional requirements means performance. Okay, performance of that particular requirement. Acceptance criteria, on what criteria the stakeholder is going to accept that particular requirement. Then business rules, support and training requirements. After delivering the project, you have to train them. So what are the training requirements? Assumptions and constraints. So all these things are the outputs of requirements documentation. Then you have requirements management plan. That is the next output. What is the requirements management plan? It will tell you how to plan. It will chalks out a plan that tells how the project management team has to plan, track and report, manage changes to requirements and prioritize the requirements. So now you have so many requirements. So that requirements you have to plan it properly. Which requirement should come first? Which requirement should come next? Like that. You have to plan it. And you have to prioritize requirements. See, that is because you have so many stakeholders now. Now each of your stakeholders are giving different set of requirements. So you have to prioritize which stakeholders requirement should be taken on top priority, which stakeholder requirement has to be taken on medium priority, and which stakeholders requirement has to be taken on low priority. So you have to prioritize those requirements. So where is that prioritization of requirements coming? It is coming in a document called Requirements Management Plan. And how do you manage changes to the requirements? That also is mentioned in the Requirements Management Plan. Stakeholder has given you some requirements. You have documented it. Tomorrow his requirement may change due to some reason. Now if there is a change in the requirement by the stakeholder, how are you going to manage that change? What is the plan to manage that particular requirements change? That is also mentioned in the Requirements Management Plan. And finally, the Requirements Management Plan will also have how to plan the requirements and how to track the requirements. Tracking the requirement is very important because thousands of requirements should be there. You should know how to track it, because every requirement will have a origin. Requirement will come from a particular stakeholder. Who gave that requirement? So you have to track it properly. That tracking of the requirement is also there in Requirements Management Plan. So now to track that, you have something called as requirement traceability matrix. I will show you one example. See, this is called as a requirement traceability matrix. See, now here you can see two tables here. See, one table is having ID S10, S11, S12, S13. So they are all called as stakeholders. So now he has given some requirements. What is that? The system shall accept requirement data. The system shall calculate the amount of retirement. The system shall calculate point-to-point travel time. The system shall calculate the amount of survivor annuity. These are all requirements. It is basically, I think it is an insurance policy portal. Now these stakeholders have given that your software should help me in doing all these things. Now they are all the users. Now who are the users? The users are the one who are going to use this insurance policy portal. So there are two users, user 2 and user 3. What is user 2 doing? Users shall process retirement claims. So this is the user requirement. So this user requirement is given by which stakeholder? S10, S11 and S12. What is S10? What is the meaning of retirement claim? Retirement claim means the system shall accept requirement data, the system shall calculate the amount of retirement, and the system shall calculate the point-to-point travel time. All these things to put together becomes the requirement of the user. So now when you look at this user 2, you can see this user 2 requirement came from which stakeholders? You can see stakeholder S10, S11 and S12. So you get S10, S11 and S12. So if you want to know who is this S10, S11 and S12, you have to go to the stakeholder register. So in the stakeholder register, you will be having who is stakeholder S10, S11 and S12. Finally, you have user shall process survivor claims. This is user 3. This user 3 requirement is coming from which stakeholder? S13. So you can see you have forward traceability and backward traceability. See, in this you can see this stakeholder, you can see it is tracing to user 2. If it is user 2, it is actually tracing to stakeholder 10. So either you look at this matrix or this matrix. In both the matrix you can find that there is a matrix which will clearly tell you which stakeholder is tracing to which user. So this is called as requirement traceability matrix. So all these things are actually the output of your collect requirements process. That's all. See, now you have stakeholder register, project charter, and you learned all these things: interviews, focus group, facilitated workshops, group creativity techniques, group decision making techniques, questionnaires and surveys, observations and prototypes. Okay, so this is coming in a knowledge area called project scope management.